Hello and welcome. In this video, I will be demonstrating my solution and approaches to the dimension data brief. We were given two options and I selected the web developer route. So as instructed, I made use of the ASP.NET Core and followed the MVC architecture. So as you can see, there's some models, some controllers inside of areas, which have views. Okay, we'll go into more detail soon. So for this project, I selected to use SQL as it was the easiest way to learn this architecture and apparently the solidest. So right now it's hosted on Azure, which is unfortunately a free trial. So for a year, it's going to be on a US server. So it might have some slower time. So when we look at my source control, I've been working on this project for, well, since we found out about it. Um, Not too much to say. I wish I had stayed to like feature naming, which I got to later, so forth. So with the MVC, I created this application using the login single authentication, which already created some migrations that we could use. So whenever we wanted to add a migration, we just do this, but the migrations were very reliant on what models you had. So I first had to set up this model according to the DB set that we had. So I used my own discretion to uh, use the types. As you can see, here's the employees. And then once you have that, it first has to go into the application DB context before you can add a migration and say add employee. Okay. Once that's done, you can just say update database, and it does the initial roles for you as well, which are these tables. So what I had used was the repository pattern. Now this was explained by Jackie Miller herself. Um, so I did the best that I could, thinking about all of it. Took quite a time to actually get implemented. I've realized that this repository pattern thing could be quite tedious when it comes to bigger code because you don't necessarily need it unless your frameworks update. But even then, you still use some of the framework things too. But it is a nice pattern where you can go into the controller and instead of calling it from the application DB context, the DB context gets filtered through the repository, and then we come and get. So the data table, this is my main view. As you can see, I use things like upsert and I get all. Uh, it works really nicely. It works in together with what we've learned through the years in OOP. So as you can see, the MVC was followed. I have controllers, which if you remove them, you'd still be able to have a workable application. I also have this users one where you get the identities and all that. So we'll get into that once I run the application. Okay. So on the back side, I think that's about it because I have a design pattern, I have the principles, the architectural pattern. So now once I run this project, I'll show how I create, read, update, and delete the data. As you can see, this was my normal. I have to change it because I'm not on the local anymore. Uh, Something I did to keep it easier for myself as I made a few here. So we'll start from the admin side because I created this whole application mainly for the managers or HR. Uh, we weren't given specifics. I was thinking of having employees control their own data. So I kept to the standards. You have to have tokens and all of that. Once I put in an email and then put in the wrong password 5 times, that account will then be locked. Now, I use very easy passwords to remember. Okay. So I just put in a few charts to show normal things. These can be adjusted to a lot of different variables. Now, Chart.js is not as complicated as something like D3, which has much more functionality, but this does get the job done in normal standards. So the first one was just a normal reading, basically. So this does reading from the database using scripts. As we can see inside normal user views, side of index, we can see I have a few variables pulled in because I had a lot of charts viewed. Now, for decluttering the page, I just made 2 of them. Okay, and I made them bigger. So as you can see, if you go over them, they get represented by a row as well. Nothing too complicated about it. So here we see what this program is about. So here is a data view. Now, this is actually an API that I used. So you can literally search whatever you needed. If you wanted everyone from life sciences, you could just do that. A future idea, which I wanted to do, was read this into a CSV. At least for now. I created these columns as sticky. I couldn't get the right one to work without the left one doing this. As you can see, if you have a lot of entries, there's always this top button. So then you can never really get lost because you can mark your thing. You're like, okay, work-life balance. So now to create a new employee, very easy. We'll do this. I'm just going to make some junk data because we'll be deleting it very soon. So I'll also put in one of the fields wrong. So I'll get that one wrong, and then we can see the validation working. Because it won't let me edit dots or create data that is not valid. As we can see, the value yes is not valid for over 18. So what I need to do is I have to say y as I instructed over there. So now we create it. Should be at the top. Okay, it is not the case. Let us get that. Now we can see the data over here is all nice and well. So let's show the edit functionality. So the edit works as an upsert. As we can see, let me show the controller over here again. So this gets the unit of work from the repository. So this used to be done with application DB context, as is done in the conceptual ones that aren't in any working available functions, at least. It's only available to the super user, and I don't want the super user editing data anymore. Okay. So I get a JSON string, just get all of the data, very simple. It gets it over here. There we can see. I update, I get the list. Then as well, in unit of work, I get this repository, which has the employee, and I'll show the user one later. Now the save and all of this gets done over here, so we don't need to worry about it hanging around the controller. So the repository has all our functions. So this is where we say the generic type get by ID. And then you can also have very nice filters, which I wish I could have applied a little bit more. But they are available for future use. So this is literally how data gets updated and deleted. Well, actually, the delete, let's show you, that gets done after I do this. Let's just make this something and then we see. Update, it also has the validation bands. Data is now in. Okay. So now we see that value has changed. Okay. All the values are as we put them in earlier. Okay. Now we want to delete it. Now to delete, you can simply click away or you could click on cancel if you weren't sure. But you have to be on the accurate one that you want to delete and then you say okay. Then we get a nice Suite Alerts, which is an API. Um, Very nice API, actually. Looks so much better than the normal JavaScript alerts. Um, if I go to layout over here, you can see here I have a toaster alert. I have a suite alert. I have the data tables. I've pulled in jQuery, some more data tables because I had some problems in terms of those columns. Uh, I have the charts as well. Now, for authentication and so forth, you can see these ifs. Now, whenever you're a normal user, you'll get the normal homepage that just says my student number. It can be changed to dimension dot or whatever it wants to be. And for the manager, I just want to let them know that they are admin. And as you can see here, I do not have the charts available for the super user. I have disabled them. Over here, when you go to home, inside of normal user, home controller, over here, you see authentication. So only the normal user and manager user has access to it, and it's inside the area of normal user. Now, this is just how the MVC architecture works, and this has to do with the charts and data calculations and so forth. For house cleaning, I guess I could take that out. Normal user controller, very simple, just doesn't do anything at the moment anymore, to be honest, because it works off of data view. So we have this data view, which is when you're a normal user, you can only see that little, well, at least the data, but you cannot edit it. A nice idea would be to filter each employee on the role, which I have added a role inside of application user, as we'll get to later. Now, this is a problem I have with my internet and Microsoft. Okay, you can see the same charts. They used to be different, but I liked the data to be the same, at least for now. So they only have views to this, and they have absolutely no action. You see, doesn't do anything. They also have the back to top. They have the search, all of the fancy stuff. Always put in your phone number if you needed to. I'm not gonna be doing that, at least for now. And if you want to see the table again or home screen, you just go back over there. Log out, very easy. Boom. I cannot get back in because I'm not registered. You see, I'm able to load this user because my ID is not valid. So to show the user, I need to be admin again. Okay. So now for my user control, I use this tab inside content management. So as you can see over here, I get this employee number, this username, and user role. Now, this does not come out of the employee data table. As you can see, employee does have an ID to it, but it won't be doing any of that. Okay, here's the table integration. The CSV was loaded once. All of these tables, as I said, was created with migrations history. As you can see, it's taking a very long time, so I'd rather not try to show everything inside of the SQL right now. As we can see, here's the data. And then, as I mentioned before, I have these tokens and these user roles and all these stuff. Now, they'll just basically tell you if you're normal user, admin user, or in my case, a super user. Okay, so now they have the user ID and the role ID connected. And then it's taking too long. I'll rather show you inside of the code. I could even go inside of here where you get the connection strings and so forth. Now, We go to models, application user. Now, I also had to put this inside of the repository. I put this in second after I knew the employee worked. So all this gets is the user role and employee number. Now, where does this get sent? This gets sent inside of the register page in identity over here. Now, it's changed a lot, the ASP, over the years. So this used to be in a different folder, but now it's over here. So you see where you get the email, get the password and so forth. You just send the employee number, or you create the employee number and user role. Then you use dependency injection, and then I find out what roles they are. Now, email I've turned off. If I took this out, email is supposed to work. Uh, I also had the option of doing social logins, which I played around with, but ultimately didn't like for industry because you need an employee number. I don't want to prompt that. Okay. So inside of users, we can lock someone out, or we can lock them or unlock them. So when I lock someone, or someone receives enough tokens by the ASP users, they will get locked. And only an admin can come to the screen and unlock this. So for now, they're being locked for 1,000 years, which is the foreseeable future, right? To create a administrator or super user, or a normal user is the normal registration, so you don't necessarily need this unless you're doing bulk. Um, so to create other managers, you need a manager to create it for you. Otherwise, my data would be accessed by anyone, and I do not want that. Okay, so let me go into the super user to show the authentication that works and locks me out. As you can see, I do not have access to this chart page, and I have other conceptual ideas of splitting the data so that if it was personal, like the age and whatnot, or if it was job specific, you might not want everyone to see that. So here I have them split. If I list them, they have a little bit more in terms of the specifications. So you can just go here and change it. Now, how I would change it in the future is to make it a data table like the others so that you can search it nicely and then go to this next page. So this gets done for personal information. Now, this used to be 4 tables, but I wasn't going to overcomplicate any more than I already have. Okay, so everything gets listed by employee number, so you can always see who it is. All right, so that is my application. You're not logged in, you're not a user. As we can see, I've applied everything, and I hope it impresses as I spent a lot of time on this, and I'm looking forward to implementing some of these things into my CV. Good day.